Elio guys, and welcome back once again to another episode of Infinite Magicraid, and thank you guys so much for joining me today. In today's video though, we're going to be covering Gru, another very interesting legendary here, because Gru is a defender type. He's also the red mark, meaning in the Tower of Mark, at least for the red kind, I would hope, he could be potentially useful there. I only say potentially because, well, let's go ahead and review him first. So starting off here with his first skill, which is called Flogging Punishment. This is a basic attack which deals 220% attack damage to a single enemy and restores his HP by 10% of the HP that he lost, which is kind of sad. That doesn't really do anything at all, because if an enemy hits you and they do 100 damage to Gru, he's only getting 10% of that back, so he's only getting 10 HP back. You cannot keep up with the HP loss regardless of what you do with this basic attack skill, so I wouldn't rely on this, at least for right now. Possibly his exclusive weapon could change that, but with books though, this goes up to 380% in terms of attack damage, and it doesn't really increase his restore self HP at all. So this is pretty much just your basic damage dealing move. And then moving on to his second skill called Giant Wood. Wow, I see what you did there. This move right here has a 4-turn cooldown though, and it restores all allies' HP by 12% of Gru's max HP. And then with this skill fully booked up, it goes to 15% of Gru's max HP, which, okay, that's a hefty increase, and it also gets reduced down to 3 turns. Once again, this isn't super great. Assuming that your Gru has a bunch of HP, then it is what it is. But I just feel like there's other units out there that could probably out heal him and possibly even like apply a shield to the squad or something secondary, which would be a lot more better than just pure HP with a 3-turn cooldown, meaning that this skill in itself isn't super reliable, at least in my opinion so far. But then moving on to his passive skill called Thorns, Gru gets an extra 20% healed effect. At the beginning of each turn, he grants ally protection for allies and shares 20% of the damage taken by all of his allies until his next turn. So what does ally protection do? Part of the damage taken will be borne by the ally protection initiator. This effect cannot be resisted. And with this fully booked up, it looks like there's a 16% increase, so he gets an extra 36% healed effect increase, which, if I'm understanding this correctly, means that his heals are being boosted up with an extra 36%. But even then, you're going to need a whole bunch of books in here for him to do anything with those heals, and he's still going to need a whole bunch of healing effect to take advantage of what's going on here. Now this right here is where we kind of draw the line with Gru, because what this skill is saying is regardless of what you do, Gru's naturally going to try and mitigate damage from the entire squad, and then he's going to take it. But the issue with that is he won't be able to heal up all the damage that he's taking. Like, this is just too much damage being spread across a unit that is incapable of healing himself efficiently. And for the last skill here called Heart Tree, it has a 5-turn cooldown unbooked, and what happens here is that it deals 480% attack damage to a single enemy, and it restores HP by 30% of the damage dealt by this skill for all allies. With this skill fully booked up, it gets reduced down to 4 turns, and we also see a, what is that, 120%? So 120% damage increase, bringing this skill's value up to 600% attack damage to a single enemy. I'm not sure if you guys have caught this at all, but none of this literally makes sense, because as a healer, obviously the main selling point of him is having heals and having a whole bunch of HP. And look at this, he's also a defender type. His attack stat is 3.7k, his defense is 4.1k, and his speed is already on the slower end of things, but with his basic attack right here, that does some damage, but you're not really using that for damage at all. His passive right here restores allies' HP based off of Gru's max HP, and then we have his ultimate right here, which is trying to deal damage, and it restores HP by 30% of the damage dealt by this skill for all allies. So already this kind of makes no sense to me, because you're saying I have a healer, but I also want him to do damage to do his heals, but you also have his passive where he's going to take damage no matter what you do. This is a problem with Gru. His skills are just super duper contradictory. They don't really synergize at all. This is not good. But let's take a look at his exclusive weapon. So at level 1, Yggdrasil's Wand, allies under ally protection status take 10% less damage, which I think is great because that kind of helps to mitigate some damage from Gru, but spoiler alert, I don't think that's going to be enough to help him survive. At level 2, there is a 50% chance to restore self HP by 10% of max HP when taking direct damage. Once again, this does add in a little bit more self-sustainability for Gru because we do have his passive. Hopefully, in theory, could result in roughly about 20% of his max HP being restored. But the kicker is that for his basic attack is 10% of the damage that he's taken and not 10% of his max HP, which it probably should be 10% of his max HP. And then at level 3, it increases the restoration rate of Heart Tree, which is his ultimate, by 20%. And then at 4 and 5, he gets a speed increase here. But once again, with him being one of the slower types of units in this game, speed doesn't really matter to him at all. So honestly, I don't really need to go further with this preview because parts of Gru sounds very appealing on paper, but actually sitting down here and taking a look at his skills, it doesn't really promote anything, especially as a legendary unit. Especially as a unit that people will end up pulling and want to use. But the problem with him is that not only is his attacks and skills contradictory, but there's really no benefit to using him versus an actual healer like Magus, like Maya, like Liz. There's literally no point at all. I mean, if you guys have Gru, feel free to leave in the comments below about where or why that you use your Gru, because I think that's very important. And of course, I'll kind of leave a recommendation in terms of his equipment in this video here. But I'm just going to say right now, Gru is in desperate need of a rework because you can't have a unit mitigate damage but also want him to be an attacker type, and he just has very piss poor ways of restoring his HP. It literally makes no sense. But that's pretty much it, you guys. I'm trying to keep it real here, 100%. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.